8-year-old black girl Jayla was crying in her private school bathroom saying, "I don't belong here," and didn't even notice Angelina Jolie standing at the door. "Children like this are lowering our standards," whispered Mrs. Anderson to other parents in the marble hallway of Hillcrest Preparatory School. But there was something no one knew. This night wouldn't just be a fundraising event. It would be the night the foundations of a system would be shaken. Angelina Jolie had just left a UN Children's Rights meeting and arrived late to the Hillcrest Preparatory School charity gala. The elite school in Los Angeles was hosting an event themed Equality in Education, ironically held in a place where equality was nowhere to be found. As she passed by the restrooms, she heard heart-wrenching sobs coming from inside. When she entered, he saw an 8-year-old black girl in the corner crying. What Jayla Johnson didn't realize was that the woman standing in front of her was not just an elegant guest, but Angelina Jolie, who was fighting for children's rights around the world and dismantling systemic injustices. Jayla's mother, Irene, was only 29 years old, but the hardships she had faced made her seem much older. Working as a freelance graphic designer, Irene had worked day and night to provide her daughter with the best education possible. Since Jayla's father had abandoned them, everything had fallen on Irene's shoulders. Jayla, however, was an extraordinarily intelligent child for her age. She was far ahead of her classmates in math and art. She loved drawing and reading books. But for the past few weeks, she didn't want to go to the school she once loved. The dark truth behind this was not just childish restlessness, but the painful awareness of systematic exclusion. "Mom, Ms. Laurie ignored me again today," Jayla said, her voice broken and tired. "I didn't even raise my hand when I solved the math problem because I knew she wouldn't call on me." Irene's heart sank. She had spoken to Jayla's teacher, Ms. Laurie Foster, countless times, but the woman always replied, "Jayla is just trying to get attention. Maybe you're misunderstanding, sweetie," Irene said, not even believing herself. "No, Mom," Jayla shook her head. "Emma and Madison asked me, 'What are you doing here?' And I heard Mrs. Anderson tell the other moms, 'Kids like this are lowering our standards.'" Those words cut Irene deeply. Kids like this. As if Jayla were a disease. As if being smart, kind, and talented didn't matter at all. That morning, as they walked down the school hallway, Jayla suddenly stopped. "Mom, look," she said, pointing to the honor roll hanging on the wall. "I came in first in math, but my name isn't here." Irene looked at the list and was shocked. Jayla's name was indeed missing, but Emma Anderson's name was there in second place. "This must be a mistake," Irene said, but she could hear the doubt in her own voice. "It's not a mistake, Mom," Jayla replied with a sad smile. "Dr. Khloe told me this list is only for real Hillcrest students." Irene's maternal instincts kicked in. "Real students? You're a real student." "Apparently not," Jayla said, shrugging her shoulders. Just then, Ms. Laurie Foster appeared in the hallway. The tall, blonde, and always impeccably dressed woman frowned when she saw Jayla. The expression on her face was as if she had encountered an unwanted problem. "Jayla, why aren't you in class?" she asked, her voice cold and accusatory. "I was talking to my mom," Jayla said quietly. "Family conversations are not appropriate during class time," said Ms. Laurie without even glancing at Irene. "And Jayla, you haven't done your homework again today." "But I did," Jayla protested. "I gave it to you." "I didn't receive any homework," Ms. Laurie said firmly. "Perhaps she needs more discipline at home." Those last words were the last straw for Irene. "Ms. Laurie, it's not appropriate to speak to my daughter that way. She's a very hard-working child." Ms. Laurie finally turned to Irene, a condescending look on her face. "Mrs. Johnson, we have certain standards at Hillcrest. Perhaps Jayla would be happier in a more appropriate school environment." "Appropriate?" Irene's voice rose. "My daughter won first place in a math competition." "Those claims have not been verified," said Ms. Laurie. Her tone carried the ease of someone accustomed to distorting the truth. And frankly, some families have been bothered by Jayla's behavior in class. What behavior? Asked Irene. Overly competitive, attention-seeking behavior. It's upsetting the other children. Jayla hid behind her mother. The little girl's eyes were filled with tears. Is it because I'm not smart enough? Jayla asked in a broken voice. Sweetie, no, Irene replied immediately. You're very smart. Lori ignored this. Maybe you should consider transferring her. Transfer? Irene asked in shock. My daughter was happy here. It doesn't seem like it, said Ms. Lori, looking at Jayla's tears. She cries all the time and can't get along with the other children. That's because you don't give her a chance, Irene shouted. During this argument, Dr. Khloe Sterling appeared at the other end of the hallway. In her steps, there was the familiar determination of someone accustomed to crushing problems. The principal of Hillcrest was always a flawlessly groomed, cold, and calculating woman. What's the problem? Dr. Khloe asked. Mrs. Johnson is expressing concerns about her daughter's academic performance, Ms. Lori said, as if Irene weren't there. I see, Dr. Khloe said, not even glancing at Irene. Can Mrs. Johnson come into my office? Irene couldn't refuse the invitation. But what she didn't know yet was that this invitation would lead her to the toughest test of her life. Holding Jayla's hand tightly, she followed Dr. Khloe into her office. Dr. Khloe's office was luxurious and ostentatious. The framed diplomas on the walls surrounded her like a fortress built with power. Mrs. Johnson, said Dr. Khloe as she stepped behind her desk. I'll be blunt. Jayla is not happy at Hillcrest because her teachers are bullying her, Irene protested. That's a very serious accusation, Dr. Khloe said, furrowing her brows. Our staff provides the highest standard of education. Then why isn't my daughter's name on the honor roll even though she came first in the math competition? Dr. Khloe paused. That must be a technical error. An error? Or was it intentional? Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Khloe said, her voice hardening. Hillcrest is an elite institution. All the families here represent a certain profile. What profile? Irene asked, her heart racing. The traditional Hillcrest family profile? Dr. Khloe said vaguely. At that moment, Irene understood. Are you saying the non-black profile? I didn't say that, Dr. Khloe said quickly. The first glimmers of fear of being caught flashed in her eyes. Then she stood up. This conversation is over. I recommend you consider the transfer forms. Irene stood up without taking the forms. We're leaving. But this isn't over, Doctor. Khloe. After leaving the school, Irene began to realize how serious the situation was. This was no longer just a school issue. It was about the damage being done to her daughter's soul. The next day, Irene decided to talk to the other parents. Maybe if they understood, change might be possible. After school, she approached Mrs. Anderson. Hello, Mrs. Anderson. Your daughter Emma is in the same class as Jayla. Maybe the children could arrange a playdate. Mrs. Anderson frowned uncomfortably. It was as if she had been approached for an unwanted sales pitch. Oh, Mrs. Johnson, Emma's schedule is quite full. Maybe another time. Of course, I understand. What do you think about the math competition? Jayla was very excited. The math competition? Mrs. Anderson looked surprised. Emma came in first. We're so proud of her. Actually, Jayla came in first, but... I'm sorry, you have the wrong information, Mrs. Anderson said sharply. Emma definitely came in first. The results are in. After this conversation, Irene tried to talk to Mrs. Mitchell. The result was the same. Every door closed with the same cold reception, as if it had been planned in advance. Throughout that week, Jayla's condition worsened. The little girl seemed to be becoming invisible. She now ate lunch alone and sat in the corner during recess. Exactly 2 weeks later, Hillcrest Preparatory School held its annual charity gala. Under the theme of equality in education, Wealthy families were raising funds for the children's education. Irene usually didn't attend such events, both because she couldn't afford it and because she felt excluded. But this time was different. This time, something had to change. And that change could only come about when the truth was revealed. The gala was taking place in Hillcrest's Grand Hall. The speeches under the crystal chandeliers sounded like music from a different world. When Irene and Jayla arrived in their simple but clean clothes, they stood out among the other family's luxurious attire. Then Dr. Khloe took the stage and began her speech. "We are here tonight because we believe that every child deserves a quality education," she said. "As Hillcrest, we are committed to providing equal opportunities to all our students." These words made Irene feel sick to her stomach. Equal opportunities. This wasn't the school that ignored her daughter's achievements and constantly excluded her. During the speech, Jayla needed to use the restroom. As Irene left her, she said, "I'll be right back. Wait here." As Jayla came out of the restroom, she heard Dr. Khloe and Mrs. Anderson talking in the hallway. Their voices were low and confidential, as if they were plotting a secret conspiracy. "So what's going to happen with the Johnson family problem?" Mrs. Anderson asked. "Don't worry, Margaret," Dr. Khloe said. "I've submitted the transfer forms. This issue will be resolved soon." "I hope so." Emma is starting to get upset. She keeps asking, "Why does Jayla know better?" "We have to maintain Hillcrest's standards," said Dr. Khloe. "Some families just aren't right for this place, no matter how much they insist." Upon hearing this chilling conversation, Jayla returned to the bathroom and began to cry. At that very moment, as if by some perfect timing orchestrated by fate, the bathroom door opened and an elegantly dressed woman entered. Little did anyone know that this encounter would change not only Jayla's story, but the story of all of Hillcrest. "Hello, sweetie," said the woman, seeing Jayla crying. "What's wrong?" When Jayla looked up, she recognized that face. The moment of recognition was sudden and electrifying, like a flash of lightning. From the movies her mother watched, from magazine covers, this was Angelina Jolie. I, Jayla stammered. "Calm down," Angelina said softly, kneeling down beside Jayla. Her movement was so natural and compassionate, as if she had been born for moments like this. "What's your name?" "Jayla," the little girl said, still in shock. "That's a beautiful name. I'm Angelina. Why are you crying, Jayla?" Because they don't want me here anymore," Jayla said, repeating what she had heard. "They said I don't belong here." In those words, there was a pain that could have touched one of Angelina's personal triggers. "Who said that?" "Dr. Khloe and Mrs. Anderson." "Are you a student here?" "Yes, but maybe not anymore. My mom got the transfer forms." Angelina stood up, a sparkle in her eyes. "Jayla, where's your mom?" "She's waiting in the lobby." "Want to go with me? I'd like to meet your mom." "Really?" "Yes, really." When they returned to the living room, Irene was looking for her daughter. Seeing Jayla with Angelina Jolie was like two different worlds colliding. "Mom!" Jayla ran over. "This is Angelina. She wants to talk to you." Irene was still in shock. Hello?" "Hello," Angelina said with a smile. "I'm Angelina Jolie. Jayla told me some very interesting things about you. Can we talk?" "Of course," Irene said, still feeling like she was in a dream. Angelina led them to a quiet corner. "Jayla told me you've been having some problems at school." Irene began to explain the situation. Each word felt like a dam that had been building up for a long time finally bursting. Not being included on the honor roll for the math competition, Ms. Laurie's discriminatory attitude, doctor. Khloe's pressure to transfer. "This is serious," Angelina said after listening. Her tone carried the resolve of someone who had heard such injustices before and fought against them. "Jayla, did you really come in first in the math competition?" "Yes, but no one believes me," she said. "Do you have proof?" Angelina asked. Irene pulled out Jayla's old homework from her bag. "These are my daughter's assignments, and this," she said, opening her phone, "is a photo I took on the day of the competition." Jayla answered all the questions correctly. Angelina examined the documents. Her eyes moved with the sharpness of an experienced activist evaluating evidence. "This is very impressive. Jayla is really talented. But no one cares," said Irene sadly. "I care," said Angelina firmly. And at that moment, as if it were a planned part of the encounter, Dr. Khloe approached them, her face lighting up when she saw Angelina. But what she didn't know yet was that this light would be short-lived. "Ms. Jolie, what an honor. Welcome to Hillcrest." "Thank you, Doctor." "Khloe," said Angelina, "I've met Jayla and her family. She's an impressive child." Dr. Khloe's face tensed. This tension was the characteristic panic of someone who realized that things were not going according to plan. "Ah, yes. Jayla, of course. I'm curious about your school's approach to equality in education," Angelina said. "Of course, every child is valuable to us," Dr. Khloe said, but her voice had grown tense. "Then how do you explain that Jayla's name isn't on the honor roll, even though she came first in the math competition?" Dr. Khloe looked at Angelina in shock. This question triggered all the physical signs of being caught off guard. This is probably just a technical error," she said. "Really?" Angelina asked, her voice filled with doubt. "Because Jayla told me something very different." Dr. Khloe's forehead was covered in beads of sweat. She hadn't expected to be confronted with these questions in front of Angelina Jolie. "Ms. Jolie, this is just a small misunderstanding," Dr. Khloe said, forcing a smile. The smile looked unnatural, like a mask glued to her face. "I'm sure it can be resolved." "A misunderstanding? But Jayla just told me very different things." "Perhaps we could continue this conversation in a more private setting," Dr. Khloe suggested. "No," Angelina said firmly. "This conversation will happen here now. Because we were talking about equality in education, weren't we?" The air felt as though it were woven with invisible threads of tension. "What's the problem?" Mrs. Anderson interjected. "Mrs. Anderson," Angelina said, turning to her, "may I ask you a question? Did your daughter Emma really come in first in the math competition?" Mrs. Anderson was taken aback. This question had caused the ground she thought was safe to suddenly shift. "Of course. The results have been announced." "Who announced the results?" "The school administration, of course." Angelina turned to Jayla. "Jayla, can you tell me about the day of the competition?" The little girl gathered her courage and began. "There were 20 math problems. I solved them all and was the first to finish. Ms. Laurie looked at my paper and said, 'Very good, Jayla.' Emma hadn't even finished half of them yet." "Liar," Mrs. Anderson said sharply. "Can we see the competition papers?" Angelina asked. Dr. Khloe shifted uncomfortably. "Such documents are confidential." "Isn't transparency important in education?" Angelina asked. "Especially in a school that prides itself on equality." The veil of the dark plan was beginning to lift. "Ms. Laurie," Angelina said, "you were the judge of the competition. Can you tell us the truth?" Ms. Laurie looked at Dr. Khloe, then back at Angelina. Between those two glances, an internal battle between loyalty and honesty was raging. The results have been officially announced." "You're not answering the question," said Angelina. "Did Jayla really get all the answers correct?" A long silence followed. Ms. Laurie couldn't respond. "I see," said Angelina. "Jayla, did you take a photo of the competition paper?" "Yes," said Irene excitedly. "Here it is." She pulled out her phone and showed Jayla's work. Angelina looked at the photo, then turned to the other parents. "Go ahead, take a look for yourselves." And in that moment, the truth was laid bare. Dr. Khloe realized that the situation was spiraling out of control. This realization was as helpless as a ruler witnessing the collapse of their empire. "Ms. Jolie," This is a very complicated situation. No, it's very simple, Angelina said. Simplicity was the greatest enemy of complicated lies. A child won a competition, but another child was given the prize. Why? This question silenced everyone in the room. The answer was obvious, but no one wanted to say it. Angelina took out her cell phone to record the moment of injustice. This action was the determination of someone who had taken the most powerful weapon of modern times into their hands. Recording? Dr. Khloe panicked. Please, Ms. Jolie, this is a huge misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, said Angelina. This is a systematic problem, and this injustice needs to be resolved. The next day, Angelina met with her lawyer, Adrian. This situation is unacceptable, Adrian said after reviewing the documents. There is clear educational injustice. What can we do? We can talk to the media. We can file a complaint with the Board of Education. And we can question the school's charitable status, Angelina thought. How can we resolve this without harming Jayla? The best approach is to speak directly with the school administration, but this time, with strong support. All week long, Angelina moved as if she were weaving an invisible web. She used her media connections to investigate the situation, and what she discovered was much darker than she had anticipated. She uncovered similar cases in Hillcrest's past. This wasn't the first case involving Jayla. Now it was time to settle the score. On Friday, Angelina made an appointment with Dr. Khloe at the school. But this time she wasn't coming alone. She was accompanied by a fully armed army. With her were Adrian, a lawyer, a representative from the local school board, and 2 reporters. Dr. Khloe, Angelina said as they entered the conference room, we are here to resolve the Jayla Johnson case. Her voice carried the solemn seriousness of a courtroom where a final verdict was being handed down. Khloe was taken aback by the number of people present. Is this really necessary? Yes, said the Education Board representative. The complaints are being taken seriously. Adrian spread the documents across the table. Each document seemed like another piece of evidence of injustice. Here is Jayla's math competition paper, the papers of the other students, and a list of students who have left this school in the past 3 years. Khloe looked at the documents, and her face paled. Where did this information come from? This information is from official records, said the Education Board representative, and it shows a concerning pattern. It appears that students of a certain profile are being systematically excluded at Hillcrest, said Adrian. These are very serious allegations, said Khloe defensively. Not allegations, observations, said Angelina. And now it's time for solutions. And so, the winds of change began to blow through Hillcrest. At the end of the meeting, Dr. Khloe was forced to resign. Resignation meant the collapse of the empire she had built over years, all in one night. The school board acted swiftly. Dr. Sarah Martinez, who embraced a progressive educational philosophy, was appointed as the new principal. Miss Laurie was required to undergo mandatory equality training. This training was not just about information, it was about rehabilitating her conscience. If she failed to complete the training, she would lose her job. And finally, justice was served for Jayla. The little girl was officially apologized to, and her first-place finish in the math competition was officially recognized. The school newspaper ran a big story about it. 3 months later, Hillcrest seemed like a completely different world. New diversity programs were launched, and support systems were established for students from diverse backgrounds. Jayla now enjoyed going to school. She was no longer invisible. She was like a shining star. She was one of the most popular students in her class and the captain of the math team. That weekend, Angelina invited Jayla and Irene to a special event. This invitation was not just an event. It was a symbol of a new beginning. This center, Angelina said in her opening speech, is being built so that every child can realize their potential. It is a place where talented children like Jayla are never overlooked. Jayla sat in the hall, listening with pride and happiness. This moment was the pure happiness of a child who saw her dreams come true. She was now completely confident in herself. Exactly 6 months later, Jayla won first place in the state math competition. This victory was not just a competition, but a symbol of victory over injustice. Angelina was also present at the award ceremony, sitting in the front row and applauding proudly. That day, Jayla decided that when she grew up, she would fight against educational injustice. With the courage Angelina had given her, she would help other children make their voices heard. And so, the story of one child became the hope of countless others. Have you ever faced injustice in your education? Were your talents overlooked? Share your experiences in the comments and subscribe to the channel to hear more stories proving that every child deserves an equal chance.